I'd like to call the meeting to order. First, we're going to have the invocation and pledge allegiance by board member Angela Fellers. Please stand.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, please guide the work of those assembled here tonight. Grant us wisdom, grant us courage, grant us a moral imagination that creates a capacity for civility and the grace to disagree without disrespect as we work for the well-being of our communities and county. Even as we ask for these gifts, we pause to acknowledge our human tendencies and ask that you help us to be informed, respectful, and known for our principles and ideals so that our future generations are proud of the way we speak and lead. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Fellers. Mr. Thompson, is there any agenda announcements this evening?
Not this evening. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
You. All right. What we'll do is we'll have the clerk call the roll, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will start with Mr. Arena. Mr. Booker. Mr. Butita. Mrs. Crosby. Ms. Fellers.
Here.
Mr. Girl. Mrs. Gorel. Mr. Hoffman. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Lindmark. Mr. McCarthy. Mr. McDonald. Mr. Neighbors. Mrs. Red. Mr. Salgado. Mr. Schultz. Mr. Tassoni. Mr. Webster. Mr. Westcott. Mr. Chairman, that's 17 board members present, 2 board members absent.
Very good. We do have a quorum. Thank you. So before I continue, I'd like to begin tonight's county board meeting to address the events that transpired overnight in the Ukraine. The entire world watched in terror as Russia unleashed military force onto its neighbors in the Ukraine, killing at least and over, I'm sure by now, 40 soldiers and 10 civilians just in the last 24 hours. I strongly condemn Russia's reckless attack on the Ukraine, and I'm sure this full county board and everyone in this room does the same, which continues to put countless civilian lives at risk. My thoughts are with the people of the Ukraine as they live through this unimaginable period of devastation, and I encourage unity from the world, the state, and our local leaders to come together during this time. So now I would like everyone to stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to agenda item number 5, awards, presentations, public hearings, and public participation. I don't believe there are any awards this evening. We do have 2 presentations this evening, one from Animal Services, their 2021 annual report by Mr. Brett Frazier. If you want to come up, please.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Chairman. I think everyone on the board was provided a copy of our department annual report. There's definitely a lot that goes on in animal services, and only some of it made the 12 pages of the report, but I wanted to just walk that through quickly with you. I had a chance to go to the committee a week ago, and talked a little bit about inside the numbers. If you ever are interested in learning more, there's additional details on our website, winnebagoanimals.org. Some really great information monthly comes out, as well as our annual report. 2020 was a really unique year with COVID, but 2021 saw us really return back more to normal. 2021 looked very similar to 2019 in a lot of ways. Of course, every year there's nuances and differences and things we get better at and things we want to improve in the future. But 2021 was a little bit more of a return to normalcy. As you probably know, we operate 365 days a year. We have officers who patrol the 520 square miles. There's only 7 officers who patrol that area and addressed last year almost 7,000 calls for service. We made a change in 2021 with the way that we communicate the number of calls that our officers take. Now, when you look at that number, 6,929 calls, that's the number of cases. Each of those individual cases may and does have multiple activities that our officers perform. But when you think about it, 7 officers and 7,000 cases worked. Some of them, big important neglect cases or public safety cases. Some animals running at large, but that's 1,000 cases per officer per year on average. That's a lot. A lot of people think of us as adoptions. We did 2,599 adoptions in 2021. That was an increase over the year before, and we're really proud of the progress we've made in not only reducing euthanasia, which we'll talk about here in a second, but also increasing those live outcomes. There are a lot of different types of live outcomes, transfers, return to owner, but adoption is very often what people think of us most for, and it definitely is one of the most fun things we get to be a part of at Animal Services. And there on page 3, you'll see some of those highlighted numbers, including 550 animals that were fostered in 2021. That's about double what we were able to do the previous year, and we think will continue to grow. What's really exciting about that number is it means we're getting other people in the community involved in what we're doing in the department. Not just volunteering time at the shelter, but taking animals home who in the past would have been euthanized. And then, of course, down at the bottom, you see a number that we don't talk about that much, but that is really important. 804 pets were returned back home to their owners. We're really fortunate that about 60% of the dogs that come to our department as strays are then reclaimed by owners. And one of the things we're hoping to get better on in the future, and that we did see improvement on in 2021, is the number of animals that actually make it to our shelter as strays and then get reclaimed. If there's ways we can help people not lose their pets in the first place, get those pets identified in the field and get them home quicker, that not only helps people get the reunited portion done, but it also saves money and time. Moving on quickly to page 4 and 5. Here you can really dive in deep and get an idea of, on page 4, the intakes, what comes to our department in terms of animals, and how do they come to us? Are they strays? Are they cats? Are they dogs? You can dig in there and then also look at not just 2021, but also how that trends with 2020 and 2019. You can also look on our website and get those additional numbers for years prior to that. And you'll see our intakes, we're going to take in about 4,600 animals a year. 2020 was an unusual year, but about 4,600 animals a year. And then it's just a question of what's the breakdown of those animals and how do they end up leaving our building. And as you go on to page 5, that's where you see the outcomes, where we talk about the 2,599 adoptions, 804 reclaimed. You can break down those numbers then into how many cats, how many dogs. And that's where you see, I mentioned about 60% of stray dogs getting reclaimed, but very few stray cats getting reclaimed. That's not just in Winnebago County, that's everywhere. When you start to look then at the euthanasia numbers, when we start to talk about having success, there's a lot of ways we can measure it, but one of the ways people think about it is in the number of animals we find positive outcomes for. And the opposite of a positive outcome is a negative outcome. And a negative outcome really primarily means euthanasia or animals that die in care. So here you can see how those numbers have been trending, definitely in the positive. But I went back and looked at our live outcome or positive outcome rate starting in 2017. In 2017, that was right before we really started making a lot of changes to try and address some of the challenges that were being faced by the department. Back in 2017, the live outcome rate for all outcomes was about 39%. 39% of animals that came to animal services alive left alive. Over those subsequent years, we've seen improvements, 39% to 50% to 66% to 70%. And then last year in 2021, 84.5% of animals, including wildlife, who came to our department left alive. They came in alive, 84.5% of them left alive. When you go and look at those same numbers for dogs and cats, back in 2017, about 68% of dogs who came to the department left alive, and that was great. In 2021, that number is 88%, so a 20% improvement. When we look at cats, though, there were days that people can recall in 2017 and prior where a person's entire job all day long was to euthanize cats. In 2017, the live release rate for cats was only 32%. In 2021, it was 88%. That has a lot of impact on what we do. But the biggest way to measure it is to look at just the total number of euthanasia and then imagine the people who are performing those euthanasias each day. In 2017, there were 2,476 animals euthanized in the department. Last year, including wildlife, there were only 588. That includes sick and injured wildlife and animals that were too dangerous to be sent back to the community. It's not the goal of our department to have low euthanasia, but it is something we can achieve by being really smart about the limited resources that we do have, by using not only our staff, but the community, and to create more positive outcomes where prior we had an awful lot of negative outcomes. Moving on to page 6, we talk about our animal welfare and investigations. We talked about the officers doing almost 7,000 calls. Here you see that breakdown of different calls by activity type. As you probably know, we investigate bites, we investigate animal welfare claims, we assist other public safety agencies, and then we do the things that you might think of with the old-time dog catcher. We chase strays and make sure animals aren't running at large, that sort of a thing. And it's important to keep in mind, we're serving about 285,000 people, 11 municipalities, and over 520 square miles with those 7 officers. Of course, once the animals come to us, a lot of times they need a little bit of care. And so our veterinary department does really great work. And in 2021, they did just almost 2,500 spay or neuter surgeries in-house. They did a number of other procedures to help pets get back with their families or to help them become adoptable. That's a lot of work that's done by 3 people, 1 veterinarian and 2 certified vet techs. On page 8, you see our PetSmart operations. When we started saving more lives of especially cats, we needed to figure out a place for them to go. One of the biggest keys for us in our department is we want to keep our daily population low, and we do that in a number of ways, but primarily by keeping length of stay low. If animals spend less time in the building, then there's fewer animals in the building. And so when we stopped euthanizing so many cats, we needed to find a place for them to go. And last year, PetSmart locations did 636 adoptions. That's 35% of all cat adoptions. And all but one of those PetSmart locations are outside of Winnebago County. So not only are we doing more adoptions, saving more lives, but we're also adopting those pets into different communities, thereby reducing the number of animals in our community and allowing us still to adopt people or animals into those homes when folks do come to our animal shelter to adopt. A big project we did in 2021 was our website, and on page 9, you get a little bit of an insight or an introduction into our website. If you haven't checked it out, if you haven't really dived into the website, you really should. There's a lot of great functionality there, and what's been really great is to see people in the community utilizing the functionality, being able to file a report so that an officer will respond. If you lose your dog, you can file a lost report, including uploading a photo and some information on the pet to help get it on our website and also connect it to people in the community. There's just a ton of great resources there. in addition to being able to kill a lot of time cruising through cute pictures of cats and dogs. So winnebagoanimals.org, that's the website. If you haven't checked it out, definitely please do. And then we have some shameless information, shameless plugs of our adopters and the cute animals that you can find at our shelter on those last 2 pages. We do a ton of adoptions. If you haven't been to the shelter, I definitely encourage you to come down. If you've ever had an interaction with our officer, feel free to let us know how that has gone so we can improve how we do what we do. So thank you very much, Chairman, for the opportunity to present.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. Okay, next presentation is by our State's Attorney, Jay Hanley, for the 2021 annual update.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members of the County Board. I want to compliment Brett. That's a great year in review. I'm jealous of the quality of his annual report. So I've handed you a year in review that we did internally within our office. I'm actually not going to focus on what's in there because I'm assuming you're going to read it. I'm going to highlight a couple things. And as you'll notice, it deals almost exclusively with the criminal side of things, which of course is, 99% of the questions I get in the community are related to the criminal side. So it's really meant for the public. But a few highlights of what we're really proud of. First, it's the staffing. So the day I started, there were 36 attorneys in the office, actually 33 by the end of the day. And then by February 1, so 2 months later, we were at 46 attorneys. We're currently at, I think, 49, which may be one of the largest we've ever had. And I'm very proud of that. We've hired over 45 people in 2021. When I go to staff meetings, when I go to the Chamber of Commerce, when I read the newspaper, all you hear about is that no one can hire anymore. And so I've made plenty of mistakes, but one of the most positive things we did in 2021 is create a great culture within the State's Attorney's Office, and it's reflected in being fully staffed. So again, we're proud of that fact. Secondly, and this is something that you aided us in doing, and that was the creation of 2 major case prosecutors. So that initiative actually started in the beginning of the year, January 1. I think next week or next meeting, will approve ARP funds for those major case prosecutors. And it's already been a success. So one of those major case prosecutors was designated as a special assistant U.S. attorney. And so since January 1, she was in court this afternoon and couldn't give me the final number, but I believe that there's been 8 cases accepted by the feds in just 2 months. And those are all gun cases, violent criminals. And I believe that in the 2 years prior to me taking the job, there might have only been 4 or 5 actually accepted by that office. So we're doing better in 2 months than we had in 2 years prior. And that, in the short time that it's been in effect, I think has been successful in those attorneys focusing on, they're not tied to a courtroom, they float, if you will, and are, again, responsible for the prosecution of our most violent criminals. But I do want to move to the civil side because so much of our interaction is on that civil side. As you know, when we started, we were not fully staffed, but we currently are. We have 5 full-time attorneys, 2 part-time attorneys, which if I had more time, I'd talk about the value of the part-time attorneys, both in the civil division and in our office. Because of the staffing challenges, we've had to get creative, and that's worked out very well. We've got one particular part-time attorney who used to be an assistant general counsel at Rosecrans, who is really a dynamo attorney who just happens to have to work from 9:30 to 2 every day, and that's fine. And it's really been great. So anyway, we're fully staffed there, and you see all the different things that we do day in and day out: forfeitures, the major litigation, animal cases, and of course, being your counsel. So the jail litigation cases doubled over the past 3 years. Well, in 2021, we closed approximately 70% of those, and all but a few were closed without any cost to the county. So that's a big deal. And when you talk about numbers, probably our best accomplishment, because that's obviously real money that we would have to pay. And so an example, in January of this year, we got summary judgment on a case against Sheriff Caruana and the superintendent, Bob Redmond, which alleged that the constant illumination of the nightlight, and the plaintiff's cell violated his constitutional rights. That was a federal case that we won via summary judgment. You may have recalled in the beginning of our tenure that I did have outside counsel handle some of the cases. Some of that was because they were major cases that I felt that were beyond the expertise of our attorneys, but it also had to do with staffing. Well, we've had some really good results. So as an example, one of those referrals went to Hyle Royster, and this was a federal case in which the Seventh Appellate Circuit just affirmed summary judgment for all defendants in a 1983 civil rights lawsuit. So there was lots of allegations against the city of Loves Park and Animal Services. And when I say summary judgment, I think you know what that means. That means that it didn't go to trial, we didn't settle it, we won the case via summary judgment motion. In August of 2021, there was a motor vehicle accident that they blamed the sheriff's office related to their trying to catch a speeder. And we won that via summary judgment. Again, in September, there was a petition for attorney's fees related to a FOIA request, and that was denied. So again, we saved the county money there. So we really had some really great litigation results. And regrettably, we oftentimes come to you and say, open your checkbook up, approve, right, this settlement, and we probably don't do a good enough job of pointing out when we're winning. And we're definitely winning more than we're losing on the civil side. So next, we have the successful prosecution of forfeiture matters. So we increased our forfeitures by 100% in 2021. So in 2020, the office forfeited about $80,000. This year, it was $140,000 in 2021. So we doubled that amount, and that's about where it should be. Back in the locally Briscato days, they were about 150 grand a year in forfeitures. And so I would like to get there. And why that's so important is we use that for capital needs, so laptops, new chairs, which we desperately need, even carpet, and training. So we don't have a big capital, we don't really have any capital budget, and we have a very small training budget. So that allows our attorneys to continue their professional development and also sit in relatively newer, comfortable chairs. And recently, by the way, we had a judgment where it went to trial, and we were able to seize $26,000 in cash from the suspected drug dealer. So one thing that I think you recognize, that we resolve longstanding issues with the county trustee and the former chairman. Those are things that were lingering and that we're no longer dealing with. The Ponder litigation, we're not in closed session, so I can't talk too much about it, but we expect a good result in that litigation. So that would kind of, some of those legacy issues will hopefully be resolved here shortly. And the last thing, which I think you all will agree with, is just, I wrote down one word, La Ficaria. So the hiring of La Ficaria was one of my proudest accomplishments in 2021. And I think all of you would agree with that. So what keeps me up at night? What are the challenges going forward? I could talk for another 20 minutes on the challenges that we face. On the civil side, I think there's two things. One is just the continued relationship between us. Is it appropriate? Is LAFA being overburdened? Are we meeting your needs? Are we prioritizing the legal needs of the board? And just really being your counsel and doing it effectively while also protecting our time in the interest of our office. And I think there's been improvement there, but I do have concerns, particularly about kind of the burden that LAFA has right now. The other thing is a little more specific, and I know we're in open session, but I think it's important to understand, some of the challenges we have. And one of the things that keeps me up at night is all of the IGAs that we have. And the problem is we seem to always be reactive, right? And what I need is someone to sit down, it's probably a 3 to 6 month project, and go through our IGAs and create kind of like a master due diligence spreadsheet, right? What are our IGAs? Are there multiple IGAs in the same subject, right? When do they expire? What are the general terms? What are some of the issues that we face? Because the other thing you all know is that most IGAs don't live in a vacuum, right? If you think about the city of Rockford or the city of Loves Park, we have multiple IGAs, and oftentimes they come up at one time, and rather than negotiating kind of one specific thing, all those issues sometimes are combined. And sometimes I feel like, and this is again a criticism of our office, we probably need to be more ahead of it. So you may see a proposal in the near future about how we can address that issue. I think that would benefit the county greatly. I think that's it. I could take questions, although I know you have a long agenda. I didn't touch on the criminal stuff, but if you have any questions or want me to come back and talk about that, I'm really proud of what's in that year in review on the criminal side. I'm happy to do that. Mr. Webster, or sorry, Chairman.
Oh, no, fine, Mr. Webster.
Thank you. Not so much a question as a comment. I know all of you over the years have heard me harping about felon with a gun prosecutions, and I'm glad to see that you're making some headway on that. A while ago, you and I and the sheriff had a conversation about that and an agreement with an issue there. And I'm glad to see you're following up on that. And I hope to see that every time there's a felon with a gun, that prosecution automatically goes to the feds. Let them take possession of that case, and that lessens the load on your office here locally, and we don't have to prosecute. And once they do get prosecuted, they go to a federal prison, and they're not clogging up our state prisons. And it was a no-brainer to begin with. It has been a no-brainer for years. The federal government has not stepped up to the plate in all these years, but I'm glad to see that you have found some newfound cooperation with the feds, and I hope this continues to bear fruit about getting the bad guys off the streets. And I know earlier also that you said in your statement that was released there, you said that as far as the catching people with a gun, it's not always a felon with a gun, and that I do understand. And so naturally, those would more than likely remain here for your prosecution there. But I hope that you take an extremely strong stance on that as well, because enough is enough in this community. For a city this size, a county this size, to have the gun crimes that we do, it's ridiculous. It's just terribly out of hand. Should have never gotten this far. And so it's time for us to turn the clock back on this and make this city and this county a safe place to live again. Thank you.
Mr. Webster.
Thank you.
One last thing, tomorrow at 8:15, I just got invited, the AG will be having a press conference on the opioid litigation in the Thompson Center. He's invited the state's attorneys from the larger counties, so if you want to tune into that. I think you all know what I mean by the opioid litigation, so that's essentially officially been settled. So thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you, State's Attorney Hill. Okay, we'll move on to our public participation part of our agenda. We have one speaker tonight. It's Reverend Earl Dotson Sr. I'm going to read a brief statement here. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes. Speakers may not address zoning matters which are pending before the ZBA, zoning committee, or the county board. Personnel matters or pending or threatened litigation may not be addressed in open session. An individual may speak a maximum of 3 times per calendar year on the same topic. This prohibition shall include the repetition of the same topic in a statement on what is purported to be a different topic. Personal attacks or inappropriate language of any sort will not be tolerated. Thank you. Okay, Reverend.
Yes, sir. The Bible. And unto the angel of the church in Smyrna write, these things saith the first and the last. I know thy works, and tribulation, and poverty, yet thou art rich. Fear none of these things. As I stated previously, a few weeks ago, the FBI director singled out Communist China as the most serious threat to the United States of all the countries in the world, in every way. I also stated to the city council, I don't know if I mentioned it here, but you all got a copy of it. I sent it to you, everybody here. Bishop Doran, 28 years ago, he was the bishop of the Catholic Diocese of Rockland, and I sent you all a copy. He said this, 28 years ago, that good jobs will stop crime. This was part of the United States Catholic Bishop's pastoral message, confronting the culture of violence. And it was approved by the National Catholic Conference of Bishops. But one of the comments that he made that really struck me was, he said, we have to return to moral and ethical values. We have to have something to guide our lives. If we have to return to something, here, moral and ethical values, it means that we left something somewhere. If the so-called leadership lacks moral and ethical values, what does that say for the followers? For Rockford's answer to creating good jobs is to create programs that really do nothing to address poverty. I am involved with a group called Ministers for Manufacturing out of Chicago that has a component called Young Manufacturing Association. The guys range from 19 to 35. That's not all young. Where these people can learn manufacturing practices that lead to business ownership in manufacturing, that eventually they will wind up being owners of manufacturing. You all got a copy of something I sent to you from Friedman Seating Company, the seats that you're sitting in. Friedman is in Chicago and Maytock. They say, look, we will help these young guys learn manufacturing techniques and own their own businesses. This is part of that reshoring thing. We say, we don't have to keep dependent on our avowed enemy, economist China. We can do some of it here. I ask you, if your son or daughter or other relatives is in need of corrective help, which program would you select? One that says we're going to give you some breakwork jobs, or one where he's going to go learn manufacturing for a company that's been in business for 124 years and it's grossing $100 million. It's got 550 employees, 3 shifts, about 2 blocks from where my daughter lives. Yes, violence is real, domestic and otherwise. And the mayor of Chicago agrees with the mayor of Rockford. But hear her. It is not surprising that the community areas where high rates of violence occur are the same areas where there are high rates of poverty and disinvestment. She has committed $25 million in federal relief funds for new investment. Are you hearing this, Rockford? Are you hearing this? I'm going to close by quoting this part from the theme song of the Civil Rights Movement, Black History Month, if you will. The truth shall make us free. The truth shall make us free. The truth shall make us free someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe the truth shall make us free someday.
All right, thank you, Reverend. Okay, as we wrap up this month of February, I wanted to honor Black History Month in Winnebago County with a proclamation, but also acknowledge the many contributions of the Black members of our community. I want to take this opportunity tonight to recognize our board members, Mrs. Dorothy Redd, Mr. Tim Neighbors, and of course, our Lafakiri Vaughn from our state's attorney's office, for all your hard work and dedication to Winnebago County. I also like to thank the many organizations in this county that work year-round to educate the public about African American culture and highlight the history of Black Americans across the country and right here in Rockford and the surrounding region. Please join me tonight in welcoming David Ruffin and Paulette Gilbert from the Ethnic Heritage Museum, and also Mr. Cole and the Yes Club, Mr. Carol Cole and the Yes Club. Please come forward, or any guests you have also. Okay, so this proclamation is in recognition of Black History Month in Winnebago County, Illinois. Whereas each February, Black History Month serves as both a celebration and a powerful reminder that Black history is American history. And whereas our great nation was founded on the idea that all people are created equal and deserve to be treated with equal dignity throughout our lives. And whereas it is essential that we take the time to celebrate the immeasurable contributions of the Black Americans, honor the legacies and achievements of generations past, reckon with centuries of injustice, and confront those injustices that still fester today. And whereas Black History Month means reflecting on the past in order to change the future. And whereas it is time to educate our youth, inspire our community, and bring everyone together. Now therefore, be it resolved that I, Joseph Shirelli, Chairman of the Winnebago County Board, do hereby proclaim the month of February 22 as Black History Month in Winnebago County and encourage all residents to recognize the contributions and courageousness of Black Americans in our community and across our great country. Thank you. If you'd like to say a few words, you're welcome to.
On behalf of the Board of Directors for the Ethnic Heritage Museum, I want to thank the County Board and Chairman Shirelli for this wonderful honor and to recognize some of the work that we do. For those of you who are not aware, the Ethnic Heritage Museum is located on South Main, and it was formed in 1989. And our mission is not only to preserve African American history, but it's to preserve the 6 nationalities that were instrumental in developing Southwest Rockford. So that's African American, Hispanic, Italian, Lithuanian, Polish, and Irish. So if you come down and visit us, you'll see the cultural history of those 6 nationalities. Plus, in 2015, we bought the Graham Dinestra House, which is located on the opposite corner of the Ethnic Heritage Museum. The Freeman Graham, who started the museum, or started the Graham Dinestra House in 1857, was one of Rockford's early businessmen. He was also an alderman, and he had the first sour mash distillery in the state of Illinois. So now, not only are we working to preserve our history, we're also working to restore that part of Rockford. So we're working to not only restore the Graham Dinestra House, but we're also restoring that property. So when people come into Rockford, one of the first things they'll see is a bit of Rockford's history right there on the main street. So like I say, I want to thank you for this honor. We hope to work together on future projects. Thank you. Where do you go?
Good evening, everyone, Chairman and Ms. Laurie. I can get away with that. And to the board and to all of you, I certainly am thankful to be here tonight just because I'm thankful to be caught doing something good. You know, we get caught doing crime and violence and all of that stuff, and I usually get caught doing something to stop it or combat it, especially with young people. And I'm glad tonight that I have answers. You know, I get a little tired of people saying we don't have answers, but we do. The answer is to inspire and empower young people to not do that stuff. And if we can have more programs that can inspire them to not do it, that would combat it. I'm happy to have one of those programs. The Young Eagles Success Yes Club, and we teach them to say yes to success, and that's a back door of teaching them to say no to drugs, violence, crime, and stress. And so I'm excited about that. I certainly want to commend the chairman because he was so unbelievable that tonight happens to be my mother's birthday. And she's the inspiration for our Yes Club, and she passed 2 years ago. She taught me everything that we teach the kids. And I certainly want to acknowledge her. She would have been proud that I had this and told me to shut up in 3 seconds, but she knew that that was going to be tough for me. I do want to acknowledge my wife, Diana, who's the Director of Education for the Yes Club. She's here this evening, a brilliant, wonderful lady who shines her light brightly for the community. And she's the one that's not scared to tell those girls to lower those skirts and tell those boys to pull their pants up. So I appreciate her. I certainly want to acknowledge Sheriff Caruana, who has financially given support to the Yes Club, and I know that's also involving you, of course. And I also want to mention board member Kevin McCarthy, who did also a donation to the Yes Club. I would be excited if everybody who's breathing would do a donation to the Yes Club. We do happen to be a nonprofit org. We are 501c3. I did want to mention something that was in my heart that I noticed is what you call the Chairman's and Mayor's Youth Leadership Council. And I just don't know why I'm not involved in that. That's just something that's right up my alley. I would love to help inspire young leaders because there are some things that kids can tell kids and they listen faster. For some reason, they didn't like me. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I can play the piano and sing. I don't know. Maybe it's because I carry candy all the time. I don't know. Or gift cards. But I would love to work with Dr. Martell and you and the mayor on something like that. I could maybe do some video projects and infomercials with those kids. Don't you all think that would be cool to put on the World Wide Web? That's what we're doing now. So if you go to our website, which is yesclubcep.us, CEP is Character Excellence Program. Yesclubcep, one word, .us, US, not just the United States, but it's us. It's about us. So I want to say thank you. I would love to work with you. You look like a movie star anyway. You ought to be on some videos anyway. Probably can sing and nobody knows you can sing. I want to mention my new friend, Marlena Dockin. And she inspired me because her father told her that he saw this gentleman, good-looking guy on television. I didn't know she was talking about me. But she did say that her father said that guy knows what he's doing and we should support him. So Marlena, thank you for your silent role in all of this. So I'm going to finish by saying this. Black History Month is interesting just because it seems to be just about blacks, but it actually isn't. Because the accomplishments of people of color actually positively affect all people in the world. I'm sure that only black people don't eat peanut butter or sweet potatoes. I think a lot of people eat them. And I think that when you really look at some of the other accomplishments, like the toilet, eau de toilet, I don't think that's just black people, and a lot of other things, it is important that I feel that it's just something that's a part of American history that we should do. The Ethnic Heritage Museum is in my heart because of wonderful leaders like Dr. Gilbert and also David Ruffin, who isn't the famous soul singer, by the way, but in 2009, they gave me the African American Father of the Year Award. And I didn't know why, but I knew that I was one because I'm willing to be that father for some of these kids that don't have dads or some of these kids who don't have training at home. And by the way, my friends, it starts at home. Because if you have first graders that will use swear words like sailors, they heard somebody do it and somebody didn't tell them to not do it, and they just stand tall and they're shorter down to your knee. So we got to do something about that. We're doing something about it. The Yes Club. Will you do something about me? Do something about it? I know that wasn't correct English. Would you do something about me and Diana doing something about it? Y'all are too quiet for me. I know this isn't church. I'm just saying. Do you think it would be cool for you all to do something about us doing something about it? And that's what I hope that tonight would be, to inspire us to move forward and upward so that we can visually show that there are solutions. And we never tell kids that I don't know. I don't know what to do. I don't know any answers to help you. Never tell a kid that, because they'll never forget it and just might resort to violence or crime. But if you tell them, hey, movie star, come over here, let's talk about this project we're about to do that's going to feature you. And their eyes get big. And I'll say, but one thing, we can't do any cussing. And they say, yes, sir. And somehow we come up with these great music videos that any kid in the world can see and maybe stop doing the bad stuff and start doing some more good stuff. Thank you for listening. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to work with you. You're a music star. You got this together.
Okay. So now we'll move on to number 6 of our agenda, the approval of minutes. Can I entertain a motion to approve the January 13, 2022 minutes and lay over the February 10th, 22 minutes? Mr. Neighbors motions and Ms. Feller seconds the motion. Is there any discussion? Are there any board members opposed to that motion to approve and lay over? Hearing none. Clerk, can you please cast a yes vote for all members present? Number 7 is the consent agenda. Can I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda? Mr. Hoffman and Ms. Crosby seconds that motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Are there any board members opposed to that motion? Very good. Please cast a yes vote for all members present. All right, we'll move on to appointments. Per county board rules, the board chairman appointments require a 30-day layover unless there is suspension of the rules. Tonight, I place up Mr. John F. Sweeney for the Winnebago County Board District 20 seat. Mr. Webster.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to move to suspend the rules on appointing Mr. Sweeney.
We have a motion to suspend. We have a second by Mr. Westcott, seconds that motion. Are there any board members opposed to the suspension of the rules tonight? Very good. Please cast a yes. All in favor of the motion to suspend? Do we have a motion to approve? Mr. Webster and Mr. Lindmark seconds that motion to approve Mr. John F. Sweeney for the Winnebago County Board District 20. Is there any discussion on that motion? Very good. Are there any board members opposed to the appointment of Mr. John F. Sweeney? Very good. Please cast a yes vote for all members present, Madam Clerk. Okay, Mr. Sweeney, could you please come forward? All right, let's do this. All right, raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, John F. Sweeney,
I, John F. Sweeney,
have been appointed to the office of Winnebago County Board Member, District 20,
have been appointed to the office of Winnebago County Board Member, District 20,
in and for the County of Winnebago and the State of Illinois,
in and for the County of Winnebago and the State of Illinois,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Winnebago County Board Member, District 20, to the best of my ability.
I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Winnebago County Board Member, District 20, to the best of my abilities.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. How you guys doing tonight? It's been a little while since I've stood here. I'm still a thin guy, but now my hair is also a little thin. So no, I want to thank Chairman Shirelli for the nomination for me to replace Mr. Billich, who I also want to recognize his service. Thank you, sir, for representing us in District 20. The process that led us here was a very open and honest one, and I just appreciate the way you handle it. You've developed a reputation in the community as a leader by consensus. You bring people together, and as a very honest individual, my experience with this certainly speaks to that, so I appreciate that. Thank you to the board for supporting the nomination and allowing me to join you guys in the hard work that we have to do. Some of you I know, some of you I don't. I look forward to getting to know those that I don't know yet and getting to work. Absolutely, I'm gonna go down with that. My beautiful wife Stacy is here, along with our kids Gabe and Johnny and Gavin, and we actually have two others that are not here and one on the way. So it's a full house over at the Sweeney house. I especially want to thank my wife for allowing me to serve. That was a key thing I needed. Yeah, give her a round of applause for that. So no real long speech. I guess I'll just, I do want to acknowledge also, my dad came to watch me, and my nephew Gavin back there, who we affectionately refer to as Big G, since we have a Gavin over here as well. So if you're at our house, that's who we're talking about. But we talk about a lot of issues in our house as well, around the dinner table and whatnot. And, the things that we talk about and we teach our kids is that America is the greatest country the world has ever known. That they should be proud to be Americans. They're lucky to be born here. This is what we teach our kids. We teach them that the police are the good guys, not the bad guys, and that personal and economic freedoms are worth fighting for. And every vote I take will be seen through prisms of issues like that and ones like it. So no one should be surprised. Thank you very much. I look forward to serving with you.
Okay, we'll move on to reports of standing committees. Mr. Salgado.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Finance Committee has 5 items tonight. One, which is a unfinished business that I will move up and do it now. So the first item is a resolution to exercise option to purchase 310 South Church, 320 Chestnut, 324 Chestnut. We'd like to send this back to committee. Actually laid over, but send it back to committee. So that's what we'll do with that one. So I'd like to move to send it back to committee.
Okay, motion to send number 2, the resolution to exercise option to purchase. Is there a second? Mr. Schultz seconds that motion. Is there any discussion about that motion, Mr. Salgado?
Yeah, so real quick, and I know there's a couple questions regarding this. So there's been some conversations, some questions with obviously the attorney representing this. So that's why we want to refer it back to committee to get those questions answered and get some more information regarding the seller and the terms with those. So that's what I'll disclose at this point in time, since it is a sale that's going on, and I don't want to go into the contract itself.
Thank you. Are there any other discussion? Are there any board members opposed to sending this resolution back to committee? Hearing none, please cast a yes vote for all in favor of the motion.
All right, our next item is the ordinance of approval of budget amendment of Winnebago County Coroner's Office. This is to be laid over. Did want to make a slight change from that. Mr. Rickard presented to us in an adjustment on where the money is coming from, the $39,900 for the equipment regarding this. So it's going to come out of their fee fund that they have out there versus the general fund. So just want to make everybody aware of this, but it's to be laid over. So we'll have a vote on that in 2 weeks from now.
Very good. Item number 3 would be laid over.
Next item is ordinance for approval, a budget amendment for violent crime reduction in Illinois communities program to be laid over. And I move for the suspension of the rules and voting on this tonight.
We have a motion to suspend by Mr. Salgado, second by Mr. Westcott. Are there any board members opposed to the suspension of rules this evening? Hearing none, please cast a yes vote for all in favor of the suspension. Mr. Salgado.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I move to approve the ordinance of the approval of budget for the violent crime reduction in Illinois communities program.
Motion by Mr. Salgado. Is there a second? Mr. Gurl seconds that motion. Is there any discussion on the motion?
This is pretty standard. It's in the amount of $199,423. It's essentially a grant that, so there is no cost to the county.
Very good. Any other discussion this evening on this item? Are there any board members opposed to that motion? Hearing none, please cast a yes vote. Members present? Mr. Salgado.
Yes, the other item we have is an ordinance to amend budget for Smart Probation, Innovations and Supervision Initiative. This is to be laid over, but I'd like to suspend the rules and vote on this tonight.
We've got a motion to suspend. Is there a second? Mr. Gurl seconds. Are there any board members opposed to the suspension of this item? Very good.
All right, so I'd like to move to approve the ordinance to amend budget for Smart Probation, Innovations and Supervisions Initiative.
Motion by Mr. Salgado, second by Mr. Gurl. Take a roll on this ordinance? No? Okay, it's not to do it. Okay, sorry, just a question. Is there any discussion on this?
Real quick, just similar situations from the prior one. This is in the amount of $714,808. It is a grant. There is no cost to the county.
Very good. Any other discussion on this item? Are there any board members opposed to this motion to approve? Hearing none, please cast a yes vote for all members present.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our last item, which is unfinished business, is an ordinance to opt out of preferential assessment for affordable rental housing construction rehabilitation pursuant to Property Tax Code 35 ILCS 200-15-178. This was laid over from February 10th, 2022, and we are going to put it on the floor, and I so move.
The motion by Mr. Salgado. Is there a second? Mr. McCarthy seconds that motion. Discussion. Mr. Salgado?
Real quickly, everybody has seen the traffic going back and forth. The information from Tom Hodges regarding this, the impact to it, and obviously some opposition from Ron Kluwer and obviously from Bob Campbell. You'll see some emails regarding that, the implications that are causing this. So I let everybody on that aspect make a decision. We kind of asked our taxing bodies if they would be interested in giving their opinion. Some weren't for it, and on that perspective. So I know there probably are other discussion items here, so I'll let the floor ask those questions.
Thank you, Mr. Salgado. Is there any other discussion? Ms. Fellers?
Question and then a comment. I have a question. Is for the state's attorney, is there anything in the legislation compelling us to actually set up the program? Could we just let things stand as they are right now and then not take any movement on setting up the program?
Thank you, Chairman. I don't have a copy of the statute in front of me, so I would have to check. But Tom Hodges may know. But if not, I will have to follow up.
Mr. Hodges? Yeah, if you can come forward to a microphone, please.
Sorry. Yeah, Ms. Fellers, to answer your question, I know that other counties, such as Kane and I believe Will County, are taking no action at this point. I don't believe in my review of the statute that there's anything imploring the county to opt out at this point. However, I would just stress that once the county does opt out, there is, or if the county does choose to opt out, there is always an option or an opportunity to opt back in at a later date.
Thank you, Mr. Hodges.
Exist. And I don't understand why we would do that. We've heard impassioned pleas from local stakeholders. We've heard from the RHA. We've heard from the Realtors Association. We've heard from Zion Development, Habitat for Humanity, all of them pleading with us to not opt out and to leave this as an option on the table. We have tens of millions of dollars of potential development that could be affected by us opting out. And so I don't understand why this board would opt out of a rare tool that coming from Springfield that applies to counties with a population of 300,000 or less. This legislation was passed with a rare unanimous approval from our local state delegation. All 3 senators and all 4 state reps voted for it, and I think that we should honor their olive branch and take advantage of any economic opportunities that they give to us for economic development. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Feller. Mr. Arena.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the point about us taking no action, the only action there is for us to take is to opt out. The program exists today. It's available to a developer who comes in and meets the criteria of the program. So it's in place now, and it would be incumbent on us, should a developer seek these abatements, to respond per the statute. So opting out puts us back in the position of deciding on abatements on a case-by-case basis. So that's the first thing I want everyone to be clear of. Secondly, I think we need to look at what it is, what this program means, what it gives. In the statute, it talks about a developer receiving these abatements for an extended period of time, 20 to 30 years, if they rent units below the maximum rent permitted. And reading from the statute, it says maximum rent means the maximum regular rent for 60% of the area median income for the geographic area in which the multifamily building is located for multifamily programs as determined by the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development and published annually by the Illinois Housing Development Authority. So I contacted the Illinois Housing Development Authority to find out, what are we talking about? 60% of that rent for that 60 percentile population for a 2-bedroom apartment is $985 a month, including utilities. I'm in the profession of providing housing for 31 years, so I watch the market. I own property on the northeast side of Rockford, and a 2-bedroom apartment there, I'm renting for $795 a month, with just water, sewer, and garbage included. So this number, 985, would include gas and electric. That's $190 for those utilities. What I'm saying is, there is no real benefit to the community. These rents are at our market. The reason developers are coming forward in favor of this is because they get a reduction, a significant reduction on their taxes for 20 or 30 years. Is there enough value here for us to give that kind of subsidy to people? I don't think that this program was designed for our market. And I think that, yeah, it may incentivize development, but is this what we want and is this what we need? It doesn't match the profile of the housing stock we have that needs rehabilitation. It only applies to multifamily units of 7 or more. And the existing housing stock that meets that criteria are mostly downtown Rockford and the Midtown District. The rest of the community the rest of the opportunity would be in building new developments in, areas of vacant land. And again, if somebody comes in and builds a 200-unit apartment complex and is renting it at our market rate now, why would we give them this lengthy, significant subsidy? It doesn't make sense. So for that reason, I'm going to be voting yes that we opt out. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Crosby. Ms. Crosby. Yeah.
I've been approached by several parties that believe that it would be in the county's best interest and our best interest as board members to actually do a housing study. The affordability factor is critical for getting people on the housing ladder. And with the scarcity in housing today, which is unbelievably low, I've never seen a market like I've seen in this market. With the scarcity of housing today, the cost of rents are starting to jump. So we will hit that 900 mark sooner rather than later. when I look at the multiple listing service, I think we have fewer than 360 houses on the market, single family, multifamily, land, that's total. And that's over a 6-county area. So I'm here to tell you, housing prices are going up and the rents are gonna go up with them. So if we do a study and just take a deep breath, we have assistance from the Realtor community to get a grant. We can also tap the ARP funds to do that study. If we get the study and we can see it and then we say, you know, opting out is right, then we've made an informed decision. But anything premature to that, to me, is fiscally irresponsible. And I cannot support opting out. I yield my time.
Thank you, Ms. Crosby. Mr. Webster.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be in favor of opting out on this. It was already pointed out to us, we can always opt back in. And so I see no reason not to. But for me, one of my biggest reasons for opting out of this is because it came from Springfield, and we don't see a lot of good things coming from Springfield for us. To me, this is more government overreach that we don't need to get involved in. We had enough government rules and regs that we have to abide by now, and this is one I don't think that we need. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Webster. Any other discussion? Oh, Ms. Fellers.
I'd like to please echo Ms. Crosby's statements about the need for a study. All of the decisions that we make on economic matters should be done based on data. And being that we have stakeholders in the community that are willing to help fund this study for the benefit of our constituents and for the taxpayers, I think we should take advantage of that. And at a minimum, table this or send it back into committee until we can have such a study.
Thank you, Ms. Fellers. Any other discussion?
So is that a motion, Ms. Fellers? I don't know.
Yeah. So we have a motion by Ms. Fellers to send this item, the ordinance to opt out, back to committee. Is that what I understood? Okay, is there a second to that? Ms. Crosby seconds. Mr. Neighbors, is there any discussion on sending this back to the committee? Are there any board members opposed to sending it back to committee? All right, several. We're going to call a roll call, please. Clerk, can you please call the roll on the motion to send this back to the committee?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will start with Mr. Booker. Mrs. Crosby.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Fellers. Mr. Gurl. Mrs. Gorel. Mr. Hoffman. Mr. Lindmark. Mr. McCarthy. Mr. McDonald. Mr. Neighbors. Mrs. Red. Mr. Salgado.
Yes.
Mr. Schultz. Mr. Sweeney. Mr. Tassoni. Mr. Webster. Mr. Westcott. Mr. Arena. Mr. Chairman, 7 yes, 11 no, and 2 board members absent.
Good. Motion to send back fails, so that we still have a current motion on the floor to approve opting out. Mr. Salgado.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think everybody's pretty aware of where I stand on this, but be brief. You know, I have already 2 projects in the pipeline, and I worked with Mr. Dornbush a little bit on a project right now on State Street for senior housing that Zion Development is trying to look into. So, you know, from my perspective, it's a rehabilitation project that they're trying to do, renovate. So it's obviously going to bring, affordable housing for senior citizens in my district. And a lot of the property that I have within that area in my district, a lot of the development that's coming through Midtown District, Zion Development, and they're trying to push a lot of this affordable. If this was available to them, they would be able to take advantage of this and develop that area. Where Midtown District, they're trying to revitalize that area. So from my standpoint, that's where I stand. I'm going with my constituents on that perspective. That's in reality where I think is going to be the most benefit for that. We tried to do the 3 tiers, looking at the different tiers. We got the answers. We went to the taxing bodies. I understand that most of you guys want to push it forward, and just deal with it. I understand there's some other questions regarding this and that study that they want to do. So, and how that's going to impact our county as a whole. I understand Mr. Webster keeps saying, we can opt, back in at any time. So I get that point. But from my perspective, since it's up for a vote, that's how I'm going to vote. I'm going to vote no and opting in, opting out, I'm sorry, as a no. So that's where I stand on that.
Thank you, Mr. Salgado. Mr. Arena.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, I just want to say I fully support that we do a housing study. And if the housing study comes back and says that this would be a valuable tool, then I'm certainly open-minded about, reestablishing both parts of it or all of it. And I fully support us looking at other ways on a case-by-case basis to incentivize developments. So I think just by doing this, I just don't think this blanket approach is the best approach. I think if we can consider each project on its merits, that would be better for the folks in Winnebago County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arena. Any other discussion? All right, clerk, can you call a roll, please?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will start with Mrs. Crosby. Ms. Fellers. Mr. Gurl. Mrs. Gorel. Mr. Hoffman. Mr. Lindmark. Mr. McCarthy. Mr. McDonald. Mr. Neighbors. Mrs. Red. Mr. Salgado.
No.
Mr. Schultz. Mr. Sweeney. Mr. Tassoni. Mr. Webster. Mr. Westcott. Mr. Arena. Mr. Booker. Mr. Chairman, 12 yes, 6 no, and 2 board members absent.
Very good. Motion is approved. Mr. Salgado.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just real quick, our last finance committee, there was 2 items. One was the River Bluff that got postponed. Hopefully we'll get that back on the agenda on the 5-year comparison projection. Hopefully we can have that conversation further. So I'll reach out to Mr. Rickard. I spoke to him a little bit about it. There's a couple questions on the assumptions I'd like to go over, make sure that we're getting the numbers that we need for those projections. So more to come on that, but just wanted to thank everybody who attended Thursday Finance Committee. I know that I had to step out earlier than that. So that concludes our report.
Thank you, Mr. Salgado. Okay, we'll move on to our zoning committee. Mr. Webster.
Yeah, thank you. We have no real report, but I'd like to talk to you about 30 minutes here about our new zoning code, if you wouldn't mind. It won't take long, 30 minutes or so. Just kidding.
Thank you, Mr. Webster. Economic development. This is Red.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Economic Development Committee has 3 items. First item, a resolution establishing the American Rescue Plan, ARP funds, for economic impact program policy. And I move to approve.
Okay, motion to approve by Mrs. Red, second by Mr. Hoffman. Any discussion, Mrs. Red?
Chris, will you speak to that, please?
Mr. Thornbush.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is what we had previously discussed. It's based off of the host fee policy for gives. Each board member will get $50,000, need to be used in at least $10,000 increments. Board members may pool their money. They may also use it for other funds from other different county departments, taxing bodies, so forth. It just must be ARP compliant. We will send out, we can send out applications, reach out to myself, Chaz Billich, or Dave Rickert, or board office, and we can assist with filing it. If there's questions on whether something may be ARP appropriate or ARP eligible, go ahead and reach out to us, and we can try to help facilitate to see what that answer is for you in a nutshell. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any other discussion? Hearing none, are there any board members opposed to this resolution? Okay, hearing none, please cast a yes vote for all present. Ms. Red.
Thank you, Chairman. Our next item, a resolution electing to opt into the Illinois Electronic Recycling Program for program year 2023, and I so move.
Motion by Ms. Red, second by Ms. Fellers. Any discussion?
Chris, will
Any
discuss,
discussion?
please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the 5th year the county will be opting into this program if you choose to do so tonight. It gives an outlet for people to basically be able to recycle electronic devices, basically TVs, through our partnership with KNIB, Keep Northern Illinois Beautiful. They do a wide range of other programs, but this has been a positive relationship, and it actually helps to offset some of the costs that would typically get burdened by public works departments and highway departments from picking up the TVs and ditches and so forth. The city of Rockford used to run this program, and they used to budget about $200,000 to help offset some of the TV costs that their public works department picks up. So, thank you.
Very good. Any other discussion on this item? Yes, Ms. Goro.
Next to be brought to, do we bring it to 11th Street or where is their place? I can't remember. Lori?
Mr. Dornbush?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. They have 2 physical locations. One is on South Rockford on Hydraulic Road, and the other one is up in McChesney Park. And then they have an event that's scheduled for the South Beloit area. Based on our county size on population, we're supposed to have at least 3 events and or physical locations. So that meets the minimum requirement. They are looking into potential other events that will pop up that aren't long-term. The challenge that KNIB has is trying to find like a docking yard so they can take the stuff, and then they have to hold it, because when they do a shipment, they have to have at least 18,000 pounds of TVs, which is basically a semi-truck trailer full. Otherwise, they have to pay extra to do it. If you take it to the Hydraulic Road, which is South Rockford area, you actually drive through. I did it myself. You drive through, they'll come and take the TVs out of your trunk. You pay at your window. You drive around, they take them out, and then you just drive through. Very easy. You don't have to, you just got to somehow get them in your truck and drive it to the location, and they'll take it out and take care of it for you.
Ms. Goro.
I've done that on Hydraulic Road. Will the people who do this be charged for each item that they deposit there?
Yes, they charge based on the size of the TV, but it's typically $15 to $20.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this item? Are there any board members opposed to support of this item? All right, please cast a yes for all members present. Mrs. Red.
Thank you, Chairman. The last item is a resolution recommitting a previously approved grant providing $30,000 from Winnebago County host fees to the Rockford Park District Foundation for improvement of the West Rockford Water Park. And I so move.
Moved by Mrs. Red, second by Mr. McCarthy. Any discussion? Mr. Tassoni.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not necessarily opposed to the facility out there and the allocation of the host fee funds, but I will be voting no on this. I'm pretty adamant that we use some host fees to take care of things that our own county needs to do for itself. And I think this board's going to get an opportunity to do that in the near future here. And until such point that we do that, I will be no on pretty much any and all items regarding host fee allocations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tassoni. Mr. Neighbors.
I believe this is a project that was already previously approved by the county board like 2 years ago. They just didn't have an opportunity to use the money and they just had to come up again. I don't know if Chris, you want to speak to it?
Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, that's correct, Mr. Neighbors. This was approved in 2019. There was language from some emails from a county administrator a few previously that said that we will match up to $30,000, but you have to send us essentially your receipts to prove that you've done that. They just completed the project in 2021, December. So they just finished it and then they had submitted it. So we were getting it together. It was essentially already committed. They did have some delays due to COVID and supply chain issues with that.
Thank you. Mr. Girl?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not opposed to this, but I would really love to see how much the West Rock Wake Park brings in annually as far as revenue goes. And just to see is $30,000 investment, if that's a good idea out there. I don't know how many people actually come in from out of town, stay here, what the economic impact is. I would love to see that from the Rockford Park District if they could provide those figures to us. And so I would like to see that, I really would have liked to see that first before we voted on this, just to see what $30,000 is buying us. I don't know what improvements they plan on putting in out there. So I would also like to know that. Thank you.
Mr. Girl. I'm going to go to Mr. Salgado first and back to Mr. Sisson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, just I think the question that I had was Mr. Neighbors kind of answered it, that and Mr. Dornbush regarding that it's just a recommitment. Because my question was like, are we giving them another 30,000 for what? So it sounds like it's been approved in the past. I know it's at Lovings Lake. This is a project with the wakeboarding, trying to get kids an opportunity just like they do on Alpine Hills. Some activity with different activities across the board. So I'm sure that maybe we should invite next time the Park District to talk a little bit about the wake park out there development. I know it's a third-party vendor out there. So so basically based on Mr. Neighbors and Mr. Dornbush, I don't have no objection on this getting that through. Thank you.
I'd like to speak to that also. 2 years ago, we approved that, but the Park District could not come up with a match at that time. Now that they have the match, this is just a recommitment. So that's all we're doing.
Chris, did you have your hand up and then I'll get to that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I was just going to expand a little bit. This whole project was $132,000. Dan Jacobson from the Rockford Park District had come to a committee and spoke to it. And also at committee, he was saying that Hard Rock is also committing to assist with a building of a large amphitheater out there. He also stated that this park is one of the most heavily used in their systems for parks. So they've had good return. He didn't give specific numbers, but he said it is one of the heavier used parks that they have. And they have a lot of, this is phase one essentially of a multi-phase development that they'll be continuing to expand out at Levings Lake for this.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Arena? Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I'd like to say I support Mr. Tassoni's statements about utilizing host fees for our roads and infrastructure. I think it's time that we properly fund that. And secondly, I did vote for this the last time it was up, so I'll be voting in favor of it now. But the question I have is, and I guess I don't understand, why are we voting on this again? If this board made a commitment at some point in time, why does it become necessary to vote on it a second time now? I don't know. I don't know where this generated from. Was it from the state's attorney's office? Ms. Vaughn, is it a legal matter?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, so it's my understanding that it was supposed to be completed within a certain fiscal year, but since we're in a new fiscal year and to make sure our records are correct, we wanted to make sure the allocation was within this fiscal year, which ends in September. So that's why it was brought back. Just a cleanup
Like
matter.
a matter of like bookkeeping on our
Correct,
part?
correct.
Because I understand that people might have a different point of view now than when it was voted on 2 years ago. But I think just as a board, we need to be conscious of honoring commitments that are made by the board. Unless it's for some extreme change in circumstance. So thank you.
Mr. Tassoni?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And yeah, I was under the impression that this was an additional commitment in addition to our prior, and I did support it initially, and I will support it as well again with the information that I've heard.
Thank you. Mr. Gurl? And then I'll come.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I remember correctly, I voted for this back 2 years ago. I'll vote for it again, but I would really love to see someone from the Park District come in October and give us a report on just what the economic impact was from our investment. I would love to see that from any investment that we make in the community to especially a taxing body that brings in much more dollars than Winnebago County does. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gurl. Mr. McCarthy and then Mr. Webster.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just want to, I guess, piggyback some of the comments from Mr. Arena, also Mr. Gurl, Mr. Tassoni, and also Mr. Salgado as well. And it's nice that we also have a partnership with the Park District, because I believe it was $19,000 that the Park District provided us because of the cemetery issue that we had. Maybe, Chris, you could maybe elaborate on that, because it's nice that we are working together, where we are doing something. And yet, next time around, we need to look at this closer. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to respond, Mr. Dornbush?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, the Greenwood Cemetery was originally $38,127. The Park District was kind enough to split it with us, so they paid $19,000, and we had the other $19,127 about a month or so ago that came through the board. So they partnered with us on that one.
Mr. Webster.
Yeah, thank you. I was opposed to this the first time around. I'll be opposed again because for a couple of reasons. One was Mr. Tassoni pointed out earlier on, and I've said this before, we need to start taking care of our own needs first before we can help each other's. And then aside from the fact there that I did not want to support it the first time is because the Park District has their own tax levy, and for us to be supporting other entities with their own tax levy there before we're taking care of our own needs first, I think is wrong. We should put ourselves first. In your own family, you take care of your family first. If you've got some money left over, then you can help others. But you always look out for yourself first. And that's what I'm talking about with the needs of our county highway department. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Webster. Ms. Crosby.
The question.
Very good. Are there any board members opposed to approving this resolution? Hearing none? Nope. Point of order? Oh. Vote on call the question. Go ahead. Very good. Thank you. Apologize. So we have a motion and second to call the question. All those in favor of calling the question? Opposed? Okay, very good. I will call the question. Are there any board members opposed to supporting this resolution? See two. Okay, very good. Resolution, Webster and Mr. Schultz. Resolution is approved. Very good. Thank you, Mrs.
Chairman.
Red.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. We move on to Operations Administrative Committee. Mr. Keith, oh, did I miss one? Nope. Mr. McDonald. No report. Thank you. I think it's time for me to take some sugar. Oh boy. Mr. Tassoni, come on up and join the party.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board members, your Public Works Committee brings a handful of items this evening. First, which would be a Resolution 22-001. It's a resolution declaring a surplus Highway Department vehicles and equipment and authorizing sale, and I would so move.
Motion by Mr. Tassoni, second by Mr. Huffman. Discussion? Hearing none. Are there any board members opposed to this resolution? Please cast the yes vote for all members present. Mr. Tassoni.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next item on the agenda is award of bid 22-002. That's award of bid for the 2022 County General Letting, and I'd so move.
Motion by Mr. Tassoni. Is there a second? Mr. McCarthy seconds that motion. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those, are there any board members opposed? Hearing none, please cast a yes for all members present. Mr. Tassoni.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next item is Resolution 22-003. It's a resolution authorizing the appropriation of MFT funds for the maintenance of county highways, $5,754,000. I'd so move.
Motion by Mr. Tassoni, second by Mr. Salgado. Discussion. Hearing none. Are there any board members opposed to this resolution? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. Mr. Tassoni.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next item is Resolution 22-004. It's a resolution authorizing the execution of local public agency engineering services agreement with Chastain and Associates LLC for Riverside Boulevard between Material Avenue and Sage Drive. I would so move.
Motion by Mr. Tassoni, second by Mr. Gurl. Any discussion? Are there any board members opposed to this resolution? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. Mr. Tassoni.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Final resolution is 22-005. It's a resolution authorizing a master service agreement with Frost Control Systems, Inc. For 4 pavement temperature sensors and cameras. 2-year lease agreement. I would so move.
Motion by Mr. Tassoni, second by Ms. Fellers. Any discussion? Are there any board members opposed to this resolution? Very good. Please cast a yes. All members present. Mr. Tassoni.
Thank you, Chairman. That concludes the report.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Public Safety and Judiciary Committee, Mr. Gurl.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Public Safety Judiciary has 3 items for you this evening. First 2 are grants, and the first one is a resolution accepting award and authorizing service agreements for smart probation, innovations, and supervision, and I so move.
By Mr. Gurl, second by Mr. Hoffman. Is there any discussion? Okay. Are there any board members opposed to this resolution? Very good. Please cast a yes for all members present. Mr. Gurl.
Excellent, thank you. Next is a resolution accepting award and authorizing service agreement for violent crime reduction in Illinois communities program, and I so move.
Very good. Motion by Mr. Gurl, second by Ms. Gurl. Any discussion? Are there any board members opposed to this resolution? Very good. Please cast a yes vote for all members present. Mr. Curl.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last is a resolution awarding an agreement with Benchmark Analytics, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Gurl, second by Ms. Gorel. Any discussion? Are there any board members opposed to this resolution? Very good. Please cast a yes vote for all members present.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes our report.
Thank you, Mr. Gurl. Move on to unfinished business. Unfinished business. We have appointments that were laid over for 30 days for the Howard Union Cemetery. It was read in January 13, 2022. The compensation is none. The appointee is Mike Alberstadt. It's a reappointment from June 2021 to June 2027. Do I have a motion to approve? By Mr. Salgado, a second by Mr. Neighbors. Is there any discussion on this appointment? Very good. Are there any board members opposed to this appointment? Very good. Please cast a yes vote for all members present. And we already took care of the finance. Okay, new business. Is there any new business in front of the board this evening? Ms. Gorel.
Board members get married recently. Did anyone know that?
No.
Maybe Mr. Salgato would like to tell us.
Mr. Salgado would like to tell you something?
It wasn't you? Thank you.
Let me get this straight. There was a Salgado that got married, but not this Salgado. Well,
We'll strike that from the minutes.
good intentions. Good intentions, Angie. Good intentions. Can anyone top that new business? Yes. Please, Mr. Sweeney.
I got married in July, so we can.
Oh, there you go. He got married. Somebody got
I'll
married.
put myself out there. Yeah, there you go. I did want to say something under new business.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I didn't mention my remarks up there. Is that it's no secret I came from the Rock River Reclamation District Board, now the Fall River Sanitation Authority, and I just wanted to make a mention about the incredible leadership out there that they have. Tim Hansen's a wonderful head of that organization, does a great job for the most part. My understanding is morale is great. The fiscal health is quite good, and there's a ton of hugely expensive mandated capital expenditures that are going to be done out there, and they plan for them, and just all the top staff out there are extremely good at what they do. And it was as I said in my resignation letter to them, was that it was a great place when I got there. I take no credit at all for how well it's run, and I know we're going to be going through obviously an appointment process for at least one new member out there, and I just wanted to mention that and give some accolades to Mr. Hansen on how he does things out there, for sure.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Tassoni?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to mention to some who may not know, but I had the opportunity, I have fond memories working with Mr. Sweeney in the past, and just like to say welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Tassoni. Mr. McDonald?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On my professional side, I participated in an employee workshop or job fair at Rock Valley College this afternoon. One thing that I was amazed about learning is Rock Valley College is offering a 16-week program for CNC machining for free. It's going to be at their ATC in Belvedere. Anybody who could use it or know somebody that wants to, we don't have enough CNC people, we don't have enough welders, or we have such a lack of people that are available for a lot of businesses. So if you know of anybody looking to get into that type of field, please contact Rock Valley College. And as of right now, they're starting off with the CNC machining, but they said they're probably going to move it to a welding program as well. So check out Rock Valley.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Any other board members, new business? Mr. Booker?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, just to add on to that, Chief Saganek, if you could let Bob Redmond know over there at the jail about what Mr. McDonald just covered there, that'd be real helpful to maybe get some of these kids that are just getting out of the system, and we could steer them out that way. Thanks, Chief. Excellent. Thank you, Chief.
Yeah, thank you. Any other new business? Announcements and communications. Clerk Lori Gummow.
Thank you, Chairman. The items listed below were received as communications. I also want to extend a reminder to all the board members. The first day to file your petitions is Monday, March 7th at 8 a.m. It will go until, for 1 week, until 5 p.m. on the 14th. Do not be late.
Very good.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any other announcements, communications? Okay, can I have a motion to go into closed session to discuss labor negotiations? Moved by Mr. Neighbors, second by Mr. Arena. Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Ms. Fellers? Mr. Gurl? Mrs. Gorel? Mr. Hoffman? Mr. Lindmark? Mr. McCarthy? Mr. McDonald? Mr. Neighbors? Mrs. Red? Mr. Salgado? Mr. Schultz? Mr. Sweeney? Mr. Tassoni? Mr. Webster? Mr. Westcott? Mr. Arena? Mr. Booker? Yes. Mrs. Crosby? It's 18 whatevers and 2 absent.